In this episode, I talk about copywriting for course creators with Paige Poutiainen.
Welcome to the Online Course Coach Podcast, brought to you by TrueFocusMedia.com. Whether you're a beginner or expert, this is the podcast for the latest in online course creation tips, news, interviews, and ideas. And here's your coach, Jeff Long.
Welcome back to another episode of the Online Course Coach Podcast. And I don't know if you'll be listening to this approaching the new year or already in the new year, but I don't know if you're like me. I get excited for a new year. It seems like a fresh start, even though it's just a continuation of our life, right? But it seems like a fresh start where we can plan, we can set goals, and we can have a vision for the upcoming year. So what are you planning on doing in 2019? Are you planning on finally creating your course, launching your course, and getting out into the world? Or maybe you're looking to market your existing course so you can finally start making money on a course you created a while ago. So maybe you created it last year. It just hasn't been the money maker that you were hoping it would be, or it hasn't helped or impacted people like you were hoping it would be. I understand that. That's very common. And a lot of times I find that people need a community. They need a group of other motivated people to encourage and hold them accountable. So that's me, and I'm sure that's you. So what are you planning on doing in 2019 with your business and with your course? Because yes, this podcast is about courses, but it goes much deeper than that. I'm going to be talking a lot more about business. I've been in business for over 15 years and have learned quite a few things that I will be sharing in the coming podcasts. And then what are you planning on letting go of in 2019? It's so easy to add, isn't it? We want to learn this. We want to create a course. We want to create more courses. We want to build our website. We want to do X, Y, and Z, but we're never letting go. In fact, that's going to be one of the key things I'll be doing in 2019 is trimming back. I think there's one of my friends is the head landscaper at Ole Miss University. We're in the same mastermind together, and he recently gave a demonstration in Nashville about trimming trees and pruning trees, and how you have to prune things back so it can grow more, it can grow more full, it can give more fruit. So I'm going to be trimming some things back in 2019 because I want to make space for new things. If we're always adding, we really can't be effective. And so I want to make sure that I have time to think. I have time for new opportunities. I have time to, finally do X. And I don't know if you're like that as well, but I would encourage you to let go, to cut, to prune some things in the new year. If you are looking at creating your course or marketing your existing course, I found that, you can take a course about how to make a course, right? And most people want feedback and community and how to know how their course fits in with their business. So I've been really thinking through how to best help you with your course creation, with your business growth. And I have 3 things I want to talk to you about before we get into the interview. The first thing is I'm going to be holding regular masterclasses where I go deep into a topic to show you my exact process. So a couple, topics that we'll cover will be things like Facebook ads for course creators, course marketing mastery, where I'll show you over 30 ways to market your online course before you launch it, during the launch, and after you create your course. Because that's something that I've noticed as I audit courses for people like you, as I help people create courses, the marketing is key. And a lot of times if you don't have that marketing strategy in place before, during, and after you create your course, it's just not going to have as much success. The third masterclass we'll talk about are rapid revenue streams, where I'll give over 20 additional revenue streams you can create around your course. And let's be honest, a course is not the only part of your business. So what if you could have 20 revenue streams around your business. And a course is one of them. And I give over 20 other revenue streams. How cool is that? I'll also be presenting on how to sell courses to companies. And I'm sure I'll have other masterclasses that I'll be going in depth about. But you can learn more about these masterclasses. Go to onlinecoursecoach.com/masterclass, where you can sign up for the upcoming class, get alerted to the next ones. And the good thing is, if you sign up to take the masterclass live, it will be cheaper than when I release it onto my website. Because I really want that live interaction. There is something powerful when you can ask questions, when you can be there live and you're not distracted, you're not doing 10 other things. And so I want to help motivate you to be there live for the masterclass. Now, if you do sign up for the live and you just can't make it, that's different. But I'll be putting up the recording, a few weeks later, and it will be, 2 to 3 times more costly than what I offer it for a live, because I really do want you to be there. So again, go to onlinecoursecoach.com/masterclass to check that out. The second thing I want to tell you about is, if you want to launch your course, but you don't want to buy a course about creating a course and sit through hours of content, well, you really have to, get left out figuring a bunch of stuff on your own that they don't explain. You really need to check out my 6-week course accelerator group coaching program. Wow, that's a long name. I need to shorten that. Anyway, you can learn more about that at onlinecoursecoach.com/group coaching. You've heard me talk about that before, even heard some testimonials and different things, from some of the members. I mean, I was blown away at how impactful it was, because we went through the process of how to create a course, but it was so helpful to have group input from other course creators. People would say, hey, what if you think about that? Or have you approached it this way? And there was a lot of feedback in the Facebook group and on our live calls and some of the other things we did, and it was a lot of fun. So if you want to jump into that course accelerator coaching group, it's only 6 weeks and it's only limited to a certain amount of people. I'm thinking about 6 or less. I really think that was a good amount. And so that's going to be starting in the new year. And then lastly, if you want to join my Course Creators Mastermind, this is for people that are already in the process, or they're creating a course, or they want kind of that feedback. It's only several months long. It's about 4 months long because, while we might extend it, I think it'll be something where we can really help each other move ahead. And we're already doing that with the first round of the Course Creators Mastermind, and it's been a lot of fun. In fact, today is the day where one of the members kind of gets on the hot seat. We call it the Circle of Influence. And we spend 30 minutes just diving into their business, what they're trying to accomplish in their overall business, as well as their course, answer all the in-depth questions. And it's not just me, it's really the community, the other mastermind members. So I highly recommend that. So go to onlinecoursecoach.com/mastermind to check out that. And those links that I just gave are in the show notes. Hey, well, let's jump into the interview here today with Paige. And at the very start of the interview, there is some slight audio scratching or noises, but we fixed those pretty quickly for the rest of the interview. So we get into some helpful tips that you can really use to improve the copy of your website, your courses, and your marketing. And Paige does a really good job of explaining that because, it can be complicated, right? You're thinking, I just need to create a course and then launch it, and then I'm going to make, millions, right? And when that doesn't happen, which honestly, I don't want you to think about the millions of dollars. I want you to think about helping people, serving people, solving problems, and then the money will come. And finding your audience. Those are the important things. And Paige talks about how to speak to people through written word. So Paige Poutiainen is a certified funnel strategist, conversion copywriter, and founder of the Impact Copywriter. She helps growing businesses turn more web visitors into subscribers, turn more subscribers into paying customers, and turn more customers into profitable, long-term relationships, ultimately reaching new levels of business growth. Paige has helped CEOs and entrepreneurs all over the world boost their sales with strategic sales funnels and conversion copywriting. And she talks a little bit about her own course, which you can get a link direct to at onlinecoursecoach.com/SP Persuasion. That's SP Persuasion. Well, Paige, thank you so much for being on the Online Course Coach podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So before we jump into copywriting and how to paint the picture with words, tell me a little bit about your background and how you got started in copywriting.
Yeah, sure. So technically, I call myself a funnel strategist and conversion copywriter. And I'm also a founder of impactcopywriter.com. And I really got into copywriting right after grad school. I was a self-taught content marketer, focusing like on, the Content Marketing Institute. If you've read about them, where they do like lots of blogging and content as like an inbound strategy for marketing. And so I was self-taught, and I got a job at a startup. And then, I spent about 6 months there. I kind of got my feet wet in doing landing pages, website, because that was in a startup, you wear lots of hats. I was like the only marketing person there. And because I was living in Helsinki, I was also the only like native US English speaking person. So, everything that if you're selling to the US market, then you want it to sound really native. So, that was also my role, is to write copy that sounded native to that market. So that's kind of, I got my feet wet doing some emails. I actually built like a mini course, just, learning as I went, iterating, pivoting, and, learning as many skills, as I could in whatever like served that startup in doing their marketing. About 6 months later, after starting that job, I realized that, it was really stressful to build a startup, and I was spending so much time, I'm the type of person who I take my work home with me. And even if I don't have anything to do, it's like the mental aspect. I really want the things I work on to succeed. So it was just really stressful. And I decided that, if I was going to be so stressed out about something, I wanted it to be for something I was building of my own. So at that point, I quit. I started freelancing, and then slowly, started. I'm not really sure how I started hearing about conversion copywriting. I just landed there one day on Copy Hackers and started diving into their stuff. And I was like, I could be doing stuff that's more important, that's closer to the sale. And then also, making more money when you're a freelancer. You make enough to do well. So that was kind of the path I started going down, was towards conversion copywriting, following Joanna Wiebe and everything she teaches. And I've been slowly niching down and finding who are the people I want to help. And that's the online course creators. I take a lot of courses. I love doing personal development stuff. That's my jam. I probably spend way too much money on courses, to be honest. So that's what I'm interested in doing. So that's what's easier for me to analyze, from a copywriting standpoint. I swipe, save sales pages left and right so that I have inspiration on hand, So I think that's kind of the evolution of how I got to where I am.
I love that you are, you can tell you're a learner, because, and I think that's important to anybody's success. The more somebody learns, the more that they're growing, and the more skills that they can add, the more value they can provide. And so I'm glad that you weren't just kind of sitting back at your job and just letting it happen to you, but you were, you were making it happen. So talk to me about how you moved overseas, and was that a part of the plan, or did that just kind of happen?
That just kind of happened. My husband is from Finland, so that's how I ended up over there. And we met in college. He was doing an exchange, fell in love, and as soon as I graduated, I had a bit of an adventurous streak in me. I was like, I'm going to Finland. So that's how I ended up there. And I was there for about 6 years. I did grad school and that first startup job there. And just in the last month and a half or so, at the time of recording this, we moved back to Tennessee, which is where I'm originally from.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Now, you mentioned something that we have in common. We both love courses, love taking courses and even reviewing courses and all that. So I didn't really plan on talking about this, but I want to have a little conversation because I think it'll be helpful to the audience is, what to you makes a course successful or beneficial? How much of it is on the course creator and how much of it is on the student or the person taking the course in your mind?
Yeah. Let's see. If I'm thinking about like the courses that stick out in my mind that like were totally worth the investment, there was like a concrete outcome. Like they were going to show me this, like how to do this one thing. And then there was a heavy focus on execution. So I see a lot of courses that are just theory. It's more like just like a bunch of information. But what sets like a really great course apart from things like that is that they help you like implement. They give you the tools and the steps and downloadable worksheets or whatever it is to implement. Now, I say that, and you can only do so much, right? You can't like pop out of your screen and like sit with that person and say, sit down and work on this. But there's a whole lot you can do to enable someone to get the most out of your course. Because ultimately, that's what comes down to your success is if people actually execute and get results that you can then use to, communicate like how beneficial that transformation that your course enables in someone.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's funny. I just started a new course today. It's part of kind of a consulting or a coaching program. And it's kind of interesting. First of all, this was the most expensive program I've bought by far. It was probably double or triple what, the price I've spent on other programs and whatnot. But here's the funny thing, and this will kind of lead us into copywriting and sales pages and different things, is when I went to the website, it was almost like they were reading my mind or reading my email or speaking the language. They were answering the questions that I was asking kind of internally. And, I was looking at kind of solving a specific part of my business. And once I saw this website, there were some competitors. I had done my research and I knew that, there's this program or that or whatever. But once I had found this specific one, it was like, well, this is a no-brainer because they're talking my language, And the other interesting thing is, it never said buy this course or this course is about blah blah blah. It was really about the transformation. It was about the benefits you'll get, even some of the income you might expect and different things. Only when I made the purchase, put my credit card number in and all that, did I realize that, and I kind of knew, a lot of it was course-based and then some of it's live one-on-one coaching and some other things. So it's not just an online course. But I think that's important because so many times I think a lot of people just get stuck on using the term course or, but I think there's almost more value if you're providing a solution than just talking all day about a course. So all that to say, that kind of leads us into copywriting. Like, what are some, if you were to, and I know you don't have that page in front of you of the course that I bought, but like, how does somebody, read the mind of their audience or get to know what they're looking for so that student can make a purchase? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. How do they get into the head of their best prospect? Yeah, that's one of the core tenets of conversion copywriting. And we call that like getting voice of customer data or doing voice of customer research. And it's where you actually go out and find out like what your best, what your ideal prospects, your ideal students are like experiencing, what they're looking for, what their challenges are. And there are like several ways you can do this. The three most popular ones are interviews. So doing like a jobs to be done style interview, either with past students, or if you don't have past students, then if you're connecting with people like in Facebook groups where you're getting to identify where you think your best prospective students are. Another way is a survey. If you have an email list, who you're engaging with, then you can send them a survey to find out these kinds of insights. If you don't have an email list, there's a service called I believe it's called askyourtargetmarket.com. Or if you type in Ask Your Target Market, you should find the service. But it's where you'll define like parameters, and they'll actually send the survey out for you. So if you don't have an email list, it's a great way to actually connect with people who would be your best prospects instead of relying on assumptions. The third way, which is also a really great way if you don't have students who are already paying for your course, if you don't have an email list, if you don't have a following, and I call that online conversation mining. And it's where you go into like Facebook groups and you're grabbing the language that they're using. So think Facebook groups, subreddits have worked really well for me. Product reviews like Amazon reviews or Quora can sometimes turn up really good results. So anywhere people are having like authentic conversations, for me, it's at least for my business. Now it'll change depending on what kind of course you're creating, but for my business, I find the best insights in Facebook groups and in subreddits. But what you're doing there is you're just monitoring the conversations and you're grabbing things that are interesting, like what people are struggling with, like what if they're describing what that looks like in their daily life, then you're going to grab that, like copy paste into a document. Features that they really like about competing products or competing courses, or things that they wish they would have had, or things they didn't like. So everything that goes into shaping your sales pitch or your sales argument, which is what we say for the sales page, everything that goes into that, you're grabbing real stuff. So instead of relying on assumptions, you're actually relying on real experiences, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I love I've taught some of my coaching students several of those that you just said, but you added quite a few more that we'll put in the show notes. And so that's really cool because, yeah, if you can speak the language that your audience is speaking, if you can address the concerns, because I find that a lot of times with experts or course creators, sometimes they're a few years removed from the audience that they're trying to teach in their course. So sometimes we forget, what that ground level learner, that basic learner needs to know. It's kind of like the college professor, he's been doing it for 20, 30 years and forgets maybe what the freshmen are thinking or don't even know. And so if you can speak the language and address those concerns, that is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. I think they call it beginner's mind, like keeping the beginner's mind. Yeah,
it's so good. Now, talk to me about some of the elements that go into writing copy for, a sales page, too, especially with courses. Is there any steps we should follow or any processes that are helpful?
Yeah, sure. So the first step is always, for me, is that voice of customer research. Like never skip that. Always find out as much as you can about who you're selling to, because that is going to transform like the copy that you write. A lot of times I find when you write on instinct, unless you're the best prospect, right? Like if you're writing for like a version of yourself, then it's a lot easier to write copy. But that's not always the case. And a lot of times that's not the case. So when you're writing based on assumptions, a lot of times you're wrong and you end up with copy that doesn't resonate. It's just, it's not saying the messages that are most important for who you're trying to sell to. So that leads, to an ineffective sales page. So always start with the voice of customer research. Then the second step is to start with a framework. So that's what I was talking to you about in an earlier conversation, is about a framework I use, which is a 7-part framework to kind of outline a sales page so that you have a really strong sales argument. And we can get into that later on if you want, where we like walk through that framework. But I can give you the name of it because you can probably look it up. It's called PAS. It's a version of PAS, which stands for Problem, Agitation, Solution. And it's a pretty well-known copywriting framework. It works really well for sales pages because you're really taking people on a journey. You're connecting with them over a problem that they have. You're talking about, how that looks like in everyday life. Then you're breaking the solution down, like what they've tried, why haven't they been successful before? What's holding them back? You're setting up your solution as the ideal solution, and then you're finally getting into presenting your course. And then that kind of transformation that it's going to enable them to do, or that person they're going to be able to become after doing that course with you.
Yeah, that's good. Now, how important is the length of any sales page or copy? We've all seen those almost infinite scrolling, websites or pages where you're just scrolling down and down and down and down. Is there a limit? Is there, what's the minimum dose of effectiveness we could do, or what recommendations do you have for the length for something? I'm sure it varies, but any tips for us?
Yeah, so there's not really an ideal length. In copywriting, we talk about stages of awareness. So there's like this spectrum that people go through. So it starts with unaware. They don't really know they have a problem. They're just kind of, out there in the world. Then they move into problem aware. So they know they have a problem, but they don't yet know like how to solve it. So then they move into solution aware. So they're aware of solutions available, but they're not aware of you as a potential solution. And then product aware, they're aware of you as a potential solution. They're introduced to your product, but maybe they're still needing a little bit more information to be ready to buy. And then we have most aware, which is where they have everything they need to know and they're ready to take action. So a sales page, specifically like a long form sales page, will usually start like at problem aware and work them through all the stages of awareness to at the bottom to be ready to buy. So that's the most aware stage. So that's why you see long form sales pages are really long, because they have to move someone through all those stages. So it's kind of like, if you know Ry Schwartz, he's also a really famous conversion copywriter. He talks about coaching the conversion. So you're coaching someone into the perfect buyer. So it requires a lot of education, because most students or potential students aren't well enough or not sophisticated enough in the topic to be able to say, oh, hey, like your course is ideal. Like I have to have this. They need more information. They need to understand, about the area, about solutions available, why yours is ideal. So that's why you see a lot longer copy when it comes to sales. Now, if you're just taking someone from, let's say, product aware, let's say you have a webinar and you've already introduced the product and you have an after webinar sales page, those might be a bit shorter because they're already in product awareness and you just have to get them into most aware. So that's a much shorter page. So it's not really about length. It's about how much do you need to say or how much do you need to educate in order for them to be ready to buy. But in most cases, it's longer copy. For things like opt-ins, for lead magnets and such, it'll be a much shorter copy because you're not selling anything. It's like a freebie. So you have much shorter copy. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Does that make sense?
Well, and part of it is, I just wanted to see your thoughts on that, because we've all seen those, even in the mail. Right? We get sales letters in the mail. They're virtually the same as, a website. They're just very long. So I just wanted to see what your take on that was. And then also kind of a follow-up question is, obviously you're a stand-up individual, you're ethical and honest, but sometimes these sales pages feel a little persuasive or a little slick. So how do you walk that line where you do need to present the problem? Hey, do you struggle with this? Or even what will happen if you don't take this course, and you kind of lay that out. So, how do we do this ethically or in a way where nobody feels kind of icky? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, marketers do take it way too far. Just hammer it. They're hammering that nail in, so, just over and over again, and it makes you feel really icky. I think there's kind of a good test you can do. Like, does this make me feel really crappy when I put this into the world? Otherwise, it's a little bit shifting line. Like, of course, you want to remind them about the pain that they have, because, pains come and go. You have to remind them about that so that they're in that present moment with you, so that they understand that transformation. You have to bring them back to that moment. So then you have to talk about the pain, but it's more about empathy, right? So you're not just talking about the pain and agitating that pain so that they'll buy, but you're also showing empathy, like reminding them what that looks like in their everyday life and being realistic about what it's costing them, right? We don't want to say, well, you're going to die tomorrow if you don't do X. So there's not really any hard and fast rules, but when I'm doing a sales page, I like to focus on not driving the pain in too hard, but I do want to remind them what that's like so that they're in that present moment with me. And then the claims that I make, I want to make sure they're realistic, that those are promises that are achievable. There's a lot of people like in the digital marketing space, I get so many ads because that's the space I'm in, just like outrageous. Like sometimes I just need a break from Facebook because they're just making so many claims that don't feel believable. So, it has to be aspirational, but it also has to be believable. It has to be something that's like reasonable if someone commits to the course 100%. And then it's just like that gut check. I rely on that. And then, of course, asking people, that helps too. Like, does this make you want to go hide under your covers? And maybe it's a little too strong,
Well, I like that word because I think there's been some stuff, I've done over the years where it probably did come across too strong. That wasn't my intention. I try to be just like you, like ethical and honest and above board and all that. But it is hard when it's like you know the value of it and you want to present it in a way that they do. But I like that you said, you don't want to come across too strong, too overbearing in any of that. So Paige, I know you have something called Sales Page Persuasion. Talk to me about what that is and how you're able to help people with it.
Yeah, so Sales Page Persuasion is a 60-minute or 30-minute, there are two different packages, conversion boosting sales page review. So it's basically like the first step if you want to work with a conversion copywriter and you're not completely bought into buying a sales page from scratch, or you have an existing sales page and you know it could be better. Then what it is I go in and I ask you a bunch of questions about your target audience, your offer, basically getting all the foundation that I need to be able to evaluate your sales page. And I go through it, I record a video, and I talk through how we make your page stronger, always with the focus on getting more conversions. So we rely a lot on conversion copywriting, best practices, and proven persuasion frameworks. So it's just me walking you through what to do to your sales page to make it convert better. So things you can try out if you're looking to optimize. So I also give a word-by-word transcript of that so you can have that for your records. I do rewrite a section of your sales page from my conversion copywriting with my conversion copywriting skills. And then we have a call afterwards so that you can ask any follow-up questions, you can clarify, and if you want more help in executing that, then we have other sales page services, either where we do like one-day optimization, where I actually go in and spend a day like rewriting your sales page, or we can do a complete sales page from scratch.
Nice. Okay, great. Yeah, and to the listener, you can find that kind of a direct link from onlinecoursecoach.com/SP Persuasion. And that'll take you directly to that where you can learn more and hopefully hire Paige there to help you out. Now, Paige, you said a couple minutes ago you have, there's like this 7-step process. Mm-hmm. Do you have a couple minutes where you can dive into that for us?
Sure. Let me pull up my checklist here. And this is actually, if you want to share this later with your listeners, then you can do that as well. It's a downloadable sales page checklist that I have out, and it's for free. So we're going to talk about, it's more like a 7-part sales page framework. And this ties in a little bit earlier. We were talking about the PAS formula. So this is a version of that. And it's a bit more detailed, so it's easier to write. But the 7 sections are problem, agitation, solution, introducing, why, try, buy. So I can walk you through a little bit, a brief description of each of those, if that's okay. So we've already talked about the first part a little bit, the problem section. So because problems, pains that we experience, they're fleeting. We feel them one day and tomorrow we don't feel them. We feel them the next day we don't feel them. So I like to start off the first part of the sales page to bring people back to that moment. They need to be reminded of what that pain is like. So we're going to use this section to reconnect to their pain. And then we're going to transition really quickly. So the problem and agitation section are often intertwined together. So agitation is all about painting a picture of what that looks like in their everyday. So we don't just say, you're getting no sales. We paint a picture of what that looks like in a daily life. Like you log on to your sales dashboard and this is what you see and this is what you feel and this is what you do after. So that's why you want to make sure you do that research, because it's really hard to make that up. You can make it up, but it's a lot easier if you actually grab those experiences that people are really going through and then using that on your sales page. So that's section 2. So we're calling out the problem, and then we're agitating that problem by giving them specific examples of what that looks like in their daily life. So then we transition to the third part, which is the solution section. In this section, the goal is to talk about any solutions that your prospect may have already tried. So DIY, if it's a competitor, if it's doing nothing, if it's, whatever that is, and your research is going to inform that. That's what you want to bring up those solutions. You want to be empathetic about that. Say, we know you've already tried this, but you haven't had success because of X, Y, Z. So a lot of times you'll see people talk about barriers to success in this section. This is why you haven't succeeded before, because of this reason, this reason, this reason.
And I like that because it tells the viewer, the reader, hey, I know you've tried some stuff, you're actively trying to fix this problem. And sure, maybe it hasn't given you the results or, what, but I kind of I guess I haven't thought of that. I haven't studied that like you have. So I'm glad that that's in there. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, and that's all a part of meeting the customer where they are, like acknowledging the struggle that they're going through. And that overcomes some of the skepticism, like, well, I've been doing all this. How's your course going to be any different, So what you're trying to be doing in this section is expose the shortcomings of solutions that they're trying, and then start to set up a solution like yours, so your course, is an ideal choice because it's doing things differently, right? It's filling those holes that have been in those gaps of those solutions they've already tried. Once we're moving through the solution section, then that's where we've set up, our solution, or we've exposed the weaknesses of other solutions, and we're starting to lead in to our solution. And that's what we call the introducing section. And that's because we're introducing XYZ course. And we officially unveil the course. So if you'll notice, a lot of sales pages, that's where they start. That's at the top of the page. And that's what makes, a long form sales page so much more effective, because we've done the work beforehand to pull them into the story, to pull them into the narrative before we even try to pitch anything. We're just being empathetic. We're weaving a story, we're educating them, and then we're like, hey, this is going to help you get to where you want to go. And we introduce the course. So the goal of this section is just to introduce the course, to state the value proposition, and to give a brief overview, an executive overview, remembering that you want to use your customer's words, those things that you've uncovered in your voice of customer research. And then that's where you're going to start breaking apart the modules or the features of the course, focusing on benefits and then supporting benefits with individual features of what's inside.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because I've seen courses that say, and module 2 is a 20-minute thing, and they kind of go into the weeds of stuff that doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter the length of the module. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about the benefits of talking about the benefits. Yeah.
So a good question to ask yourself when you're looking at your course is, so what? Why should they care about this? So what? Every sentence you can be or every paragraph, so what? So what? So what? If it doesn't specifically answer that question, then you're missing the core benefit. So one thing to evaluate how you talk about your course is against your voice of customer data. I know I'm saying this a lot, so it's beating a dead horse, but it really takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, because like what's important to them, so you know what to highlight. Like, of course, you do want to go into details because details are important. So maybe, if you find out that time constraint is a huge barrier for your prospect, then you might want to say, hey, I've broken this up into 5-minute videos so that you can do some videos at your own pace. Or you want to talk about you want to support with details that overcome that objection. So then you might want to talk about that your video is only 20 minutes or it's only 10 minutes or whatnot. So it really just depends. Like, you have to really know your audience. You have to know what to highlight and what not to highlight. And that's informed by your voice of customer data. But the best thing you can ask yourself, like I said before, is so what? To make sure you're drawing out those benefits. Or so that. So if you're having a feature, let's say you're getting a checklist, a 20-point checklist so that you can blank, then you're also pulling into those benefits.
And that, honestly, you could even use some of that mentality or what you just talked about within the course. So as you're planning to create a course, you need to be asking yourself, so what, or, why will the student need to know this? And is it necessary? And so some of those same concepts can be applied within the course creation process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the quickest way, if you're starting from scratch and you're not a copywriter, and especially if you think like you're a terrible writer and you have no writing skill whatsoever, a lot of copywriters they build swipe files. So it means that we save copy that we like for inspiration later on. So I save lots of sales pages. Anytime I come across a sales page and I'm like, wow, this looks really good, I save a copy of it. Like I screenshot it and save it in my swipe file. So when I'm writing a benefits section, I can pull up 5 sales pages, or not a benefits, course modules. I can pull up 5 different ones, and I can pull inspiration so that I'm not starting completely from scratch. And that helps a lot, especially if you have no background in writing whatsoever.
Yeah, that's good. So what's the next step in the process?
So the 5th section of the framework is the why section. Now, the goal of this section is to really dive deep into why your ideal student should buy your course. You really want to focus on benefits, outcomes, like what are they hoping to achieve, tangible outcomes, emotional outcomes, etc. And that transformation, really dive into that better tomorrow. What does that look like? What is the better version of themselves? What are they trying to become? And that's, also informed by your voice of customer research. So don't just pick that out of the air. You want to make sure that you're doing that research and speaking to the outcomes and the transformations that you're finding in those real experiences. So questions you can ask yourself to help brainstorm what to include in this section is, well, why should they learn from you? Why was this course made? Why will they love it? Why or how will it change their life? Why should they buy this thing? Again, focusing on benefits, not features. And then it's a good place to include testimonials from previous students or from people who can vouch for you if you don't have any students yet. Case studies, any data points if you need to support claims that you're making. Like if you're in the health space, you might need to include data points or scientific backing for some of the claims you make. So anything that's considered social proof is a good thing to have in the why section.
That's good. Yeah. So what is the next step there?
So the 6th step is called the try section, which rhymes really nicely. So the goal of this section is to reduce risk and to increase desire by letting your prospect actually demo your offer. So we use things like demo videos. I've seen an example of a course creator. She actually did a video and took them into the dashboard and showed them around. So she did a video tour, which was really cool. To do maybe you could do a sample module where they can pull up an exercise and see it in their, download it or just pull it up in the screen and see it. Or maybe they can watch the first video, on your sales page, for example. Things that are more popular are screenshots. So instead of doing like icons or like, I'm not sure how to say what these are, but use lifelike images. So take real shots of the screen, take real shots of the materials that they can download. You can create these really easily, like do actual mock-ups. So it's like they're experiencing the course without being in it. So use lots of images, not just text. And then again, this is also a good section for including testimonials, case studies, and other social proof if it fits in with the messages you're using. You can also use like endorsements or logos if that's relevant to what you're selling. But again, like the goal of this section is to stop telling and start showing.
Is another way of saying that is that what you're doing is risk reversal? You're kind of saying whether that's through a 30-day guarantee or a money back or this or that. Like, is that where this goes, this section?
Yes, it does. A guarantee can go in this section. A guarantee is a bit special because it could go a little bit higher as well. But this is definitely like the try section is for risk removal or risk reducing. So if you have a really strong guarantee, then absolutely like include a guarantee in this section.
All right. So what is our 7th and final step here?
All right. So we've done all that work, and that brings us to the final section, which is called the buy section. So this is for prospects that are in that most aware stage. And this is really where you're going to make your offer shine and make it as bright as possible. And you're going to use like closing type techniques. So I can give you an example of that. So when I say that, sometimes people are like, what's a closing type technique? So sections you might see is who is this right for? Who is this not right for? You could also include a guarantee or even remind about the guarantee in this section. You can include fast acting bonuses. So if you're doing like a launch and you want to encourage people to act, then you can have bonuses that expire. So I actually saw a sales page that did this with like several bonuses. So there was like 3 bonuses. They all had timers and they expired. Like the first one expired in one day, the second the next day, the second the third day. And those were counting down. So that's really to encourage people to take action and not to wait. This is often where you'll see the buy, what I call the buy box, was where you reveal the pricing and you have like all the things listed. And if you're doing installments versus, in person, that kind of thing, with your button. So, this is different because a lot of times, people put buttons in the hero section, which is at the top of the page. And in, long form sales pages, we don't put buy buttons and, the price and stuff until almost the very end because we're really trying to pull them into that narrative. This is also where you use any urgency or scarcity factors. So if there's only a certain number of spots available, you want to make sure that you're talking to that. You have timers that you're putting that there. You also include FAQs. So just, overcoming or answering logistic questions and overcoming any minor objections that don't belong anywhere else on the page. And then I always like to remind them about that transformation. Like, what is the cost of status quo? Like, okay, you can keep doing the same old thing over and over again, and this is like what your life's going to look like. Nothing's going to change, blah, blah, blah. And then, but if you, take advantage of this course, then we want to paint the picture of what that life looks like in 60 days, if that's, how long it takes to see results from your course.
And I like that. I like, saying what's going to happen if you don't do anything. You're just going to be kind of plodding along, doing what you've been doing and having the same results. And, sometimes that's a good wake-up call. Even for me, it's like, okay, I do want to change. I do want to learn this or whatever. So that kind of, at least for me, kind of snaps me back into reality of why I'm interested in the course or the product.
Yeah. And I mean, that's an important point to make, that you're making a decision. Whether or not you take the course, you're making a decision either to change or to stay the same. So that's a really strong point to make at the end of your sales page.
Yeah, it reminds me, I was actually watching a TED video this morning, and it was about a lady who, her and her family rode their bikes. I believe it was from Alaska down to somewhere in South America. And she was talking about the fear of it. And she kind of got to a point, she said, okay, if I never do this, I'm 100% guaranteed to fail because I'm not going to do it, but at least if I try, I might succeed, maybe 50-50 chance. So it's, better odds. And so I like that mindset of like, hey, if you don't even try, you're gonna, you're not going to fail, but you're not going to have a potential for success.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's what, some of this language and process you're going through helps the reader see in their own life.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I know this framework, it feels a little bit overwhelming the first time you hear it because it's very detailed, right? And, if you have no background in copywriting, even as a copywriter, like the first time I saw this framework, I was like, okay. But it actually helps to have it. So we definitely want to send people to the checklist so they can have it. And then as you look at sales pages, like what other people are doing, like say you go to Amy Porterfield's website and you look at her sales pages, you can actually see how the framework is used. And in the checklist, I've actually included an annotated sales page so that people can see how concepts have been applied. And it's just a framework to organize your thoughts instead of starting with a blank page. And you're just like, okay, well, what do I put? What do I put where? What should I include? So it gives you a really strong starting point that you can just drag and drop messages that you found in your voice of customer research onto the page and then start to massage them into a proper copy,
Yeah. So tell us, where can we find this checklist or this sheet?
It's you can find this at theimpactcopywriter.com/sales-page-checklist.
Great. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Hey, I appreciate you being on the Online Course Coach podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Paige. I appreciated her being on the podcast, and she actually reached out to me. And I do get, a decent amount of inquiries for people to be on the program, on the podcast. And honestly, most of them, or many, I should say, just don't approach it the right way. But Paige had a really good, not pitch, that's kind of the wrong word, but she had a good attitude in her email about how she could serve you guys, this audience of the Online Course Coach podcast. And I really appreciated that. And I think that speaks well to her. And I know that that's how you treat your businesses. When you look for opportunities, it's, hey, how can I help you? How can I serve you and add value? Not, hey, look at how awesome I am and I'm going to crush it and I'm a guru and I'm a 7-figure blah, blah, blah. Honestly, those kind of turn me off and push those kind of people to the side. I really want people that are honest and authentic like Paige. So don't forget, go to onlinecoursecoach.com/SP Persuasion to check out her course and learn more about her. Well, hey, that is all for today. Don't forget about the masterclass opportunities at onlinecoursecoach.com/masterclass. Don't forget about the group coaching at /group coaching or the course creators mastermind at /mastermind. Of course, those are all onlinecoursecoach.com/blah, blah, blah. All right. Well, hey, I hope you are excited for the new year, excited in the new year. I know there are great opportunities. I know it can be something where you can finally do that course. You can finally make that course. You can finally market that course. You can finally find the audience to that course. I really want to encourage you to get off the sidelines and do what you've been either putting off or know that you should be doing more of. And like I said at the beginning, make sure you're cutting things back. You're trimming things back. Isn't it easy as you listen to podcasts and watch videos and read blogs and books and blah, blah, blah? Isn't it easy to think that you just have to add? It gets overwhelming, right? And so that is why I am cutting back. In fact, I'm cutting back and I'm hiring new people. So I have a small team around me, and I'm always looking at how to fill not just the gaps, but how to fill positions of things that I can do, and maybe I can do well, but others can do better to help me be a more efficient. I think a lot of podcasters and online people, they don't really talk about their employees, their freelancers, their virtual assistants, and their team because, I don't know, maybe they want it to look like they're doing everything. And that's just, in a way, that's a lie. So I want to encourage you, Probably the people that you look up to have a pretty big team or an efficient team, maybe is more appropriate. So please don't feel like you have to do everything. In fact, one of the master classes I'm adding is how to outsource your course. And so I'll be talking about how you can outsource almost every aspect of your course creation. And we went through this in the 6-week group accelerator coaching program. Again, name's way too long. And one of the members, Grace, was overwhelmed with how to create her new website and how to build her course and how to do this and how to do that. And I said, Grace, you really need to find people that you can hire this out. And she found 2 people. I think one of them was a website designer developer, and another person was somebody that could kind of help her with the course creation. And she was blown away at how much that helped free up her time. So anyway, I could go on and on about letting go, trimming back, as well as, what are some things you can hire out. So we'll be talking about that in future podcasts, as well as in the masterclass where I'll give you my step-by-step instructions on how to outsource your course. Again, so go to onlinecoursecoach.com/masterclass to sign up and learn more. All right, well, hey, keep coming back to the podcast. Send in any questions you have on the contact page of the website. And if you wouldn't mind, share this out. Send it to a friend, send it to a colleague, send it to somebody where, you think, hey, this was really helpful. And I think this would be helpful to you because I really want to grow this community. It's been fun talking with so many of you, seeing how more people are listening to the podcast. That's been really exciting. And so I want to thank you for listening. Well, hey, whether you're listening to this in 2018, 2019, or maybe it's 2050, who knows? I really appreciate you listening to these podcasts where I say this every time, but it is really my goal to help you to teach many as you impact millions. So keep that up. Keep creating your course, marketing your course, and growing your business in whatever year you are listening to this podcast.